We've all seen it, and some of us, it's impacted. Today on the show, we're talking cyberbullying.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago. The Autobarn Mazda, where driving matters. A Safe Haven Foundation. Housing is healthcare. And Children's Learning Place. Excellence in early childhood education since 1998. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly at Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, Dr. Daft Terry and the team at Art of Modern Dentistry, Mazda, Cellular Intelligence, and Chicago Andrea Creative.
Bullying has taken on a new form, and today we're investigating the painful truth behind these cyber attacks.
You're watching The Whitney Reynolds Show.
Our first guest is no stranger to today's topic. Dr. Mark Atkins has become an expert on bullying, from where it starts to potential solutions. He's here to help us understand what cyberbullying is and how to identify if it's happening to you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, pleased to be here.
So today we're talking about cyberbullying, but I think one thing that resonates with everyone when they hear the cyberbullying, they go automatically to bullying. And you're an expert with this when it comes to kids. What exactly is bullying?
Bullying has been around a long time, of course, and it's something that we're understanding better and better now. Bullying is typically understood as an aggressive act of some sort, intimidation or physical aggression, by one person or more against another. That's repeated over time.
And with bullying, this has been around, like you said, for years. But how are we seeing this advance with our kids when it comes to the internet?
Right, yes, and it's becoming much more complicated and difficult now because in bullying on playgrounds and so on, it's a physical act. Even if it's intimidation, we can monitor that. If we're not monitoring it, then we can start monitoring it. Much more difficult on the internet, where the kids are often isolated and by themselves, and we don't even know what they're receiving or what they're sending.
One thing about bullying is it can be kind of like your word against mine. There's sometimes a gray area if that was really bullying or you were just being sarcastic or upfront. But with online and cyberbullying, you have literally a blueprint of what was said. People forget that once you put that out there, it's out there.
Yeah, it is out there. And it's out there in two ways. It's if you reveal things about yourself, that can go viral. And we need to remember that, and we need to caution kids to be careful. But it's also out there in terms of the words that they use matter. They can be received by other people in a way that can be very hurtful. And what's difficult for us to know sometimes is, what was the intention? Was the intention to hurt someone? Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a comment. But those are the kinds of things we can be talking to kids about.
Well, you've studied a lot about behavior, and one thing that I've noticed is people don't think twice when they just go right on their smart device and start, not hating on, but being mean towards a business or whatnot. Is that something that you've noticed that people just do without thinking? They just take it right to their, to the internet.
I think there are times that that's the case. I think that we often might do that in interpersonal interactions, but there's so many constraints around us. There's people watching. I might say something, but I can see your reaction. Right. On the internet, we can't see all that, and we can't monitor all that. So I think you're really right about that. It's too easy for us to just sit down and send something out without thinking about it, whether it's a business or another person.
I like what you just said about seeing, because right now I'm smiling at you, so I'm happy. And if I were to yell at you right now, you would know, oh man, I hear the conviction. But when you're typing, there's a lot lost in translation.
There really is. And even if my intention is to harm, I'm not sure how that's going to be received by others. And I need to take responsibility for that. And I think that's also very difficult with cyberbullying, because sometimes it's anonymous. We don't know who sent that. And so if we're a parent with a child who's received threats or intimidation, it's hard to trace back who said that, and that can make it very complicated to try to figure out how to stop it.
How early do you see bullying happen?
Well, we see the beginnings of bullying as early as kids start interacting with each other, preschool years or even a little younger.
Preschool?
Well, I think that the roots of it can start there, because kids are competing. They're competing for things. They're trying to get their way. And that in and of itself is probably not bullying. But if that continues, if children learn that by grabbing things, they can get what they want, and that works for them because they're not being monitored, then sure, they're going to learn that that's a pattern that they can use. That's what we're going to be calling bullying as they get a little older.
As a parent to twins and they're constantly tugging at each other's toys, should I be intervening?
Well, I think we need to be relaxed about the fact that kids are just trying to get what they want. But I think we can be models for them in terms of how we share and how we monitor the interactions. When we see two kids, and your kids are very young, so we wouldn't think that they have intentions towards that, but how you respond and the calmness that you can use, we can do a lot with parents. We can help parents figure out ways that they can be talking to their kids so that the kids are learning a different way of interacting.
And also being an example in person. But I think as we all get older, online is just going to keep growing as well. And who knows, our kids might one day look us up and see what we said about everything that's going on.
There's a frightening thought, huh?
Yeah, so just being a good example in person and online.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Our Social Sizzle is a video that speaks truth about cyberbullying. It was inspired by ESPN's Sarah Spain and Julie DeCaro. But you are about to watch our real people's tweets that were sent to these ladies. Because some are too harsh for TV, we are not playing it in its full form. Here's a real look at cyberbullying.
I'd like to start a petition for a ban on all links to Julie DeCaro's Twitter feed.
Okay.
Hi. Sarah.
Colin.
Hi.
Kevin.
Steven.
Sarah, nice to meet you.
I'm Drew. Hi. Pat.
Sarah.
Vince.
Nice to meet you, Chad.
Nice to meet you.
All right, you ready to do some mean tweets?
I'm ready.
Sarah Spain sounds like a nagging wife on TV today.
Not even married yet.
Julie DeCaro is a run-of-the-mill, mediocre beat writer. Not atrocious, not good.
Just sorta there.
I'm actually not a beat writer at all, but okay.
Sarah Spain is just a scrub muffin?
I don't even know what a scrub muffin
I don't
is.
either.
I love muffins.
One of the players should beat you to death with their hockey stick.
I'm just reading this.
Okay.
Okay. So I have to read all of them, right? Because, I mean, I don't...
Read them, I guess.
I hope you get raped again.
Oh.
I'm having trouble looking at you when I'm saying these things.
You need to be hit in the head with a hockey puck and killed. That's it.
And now we have you on set. Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That video was powerful, and we didn't even see it at its entirety. What gave you the idea to create something like that?
Well, actually, the guy who created it, Brad Burke, is a advertising maven by day, but he does a sports podcast in his free time for fun. And he noticed that there would be these sort of one-off articles about cyberbullying and especially about the harassment of female sports reporters. And people would get all up in arms about them for a day or a week, and then they would kind of disappear and everyone would go back to their everyday life. And he realized that for those of us that were living it, it didn't pop up just once a week. It was an everyday sort of barrage. And he thought that there needed to be a more powerful and sort of invasive way of getting people to understand the realities of it.
And when you say that people do this daily, I mean, I think people forget that even though we're on TV or people are on the radio or someone's your neighbor, like these things hurt.
Right.
Whenever you see them online too, it like really registers that they're saying it to your face, it feels like.
Well, that was the part of the video that they really wanted to accentuate, is that it is much easier to sort of dull down the effect of the words when they're just written. And when you have someone saying it to your face, you're reminded of their power. I actually realized in doing the video that over the 7 or so years that I've been working for ESPN, which is right around the same time that Twitter came into existence, maybe a couple years before that, I've sort of been able to numb myself to them, which feels like a very good protection of self, but is actually really dangerous because there are people who, if they're creating 30, 40 accounts, and every time they get blocked, they create a new one, that's actually really potentially dangerous and scary. And that's the kind of thing you shouldn't numb yourself to. That's the kind of thing that maybe you need to reach out to authorities or to security at your company and actually say, this is problematic and this has gone beyond the norm. I also just think there is something to be said for specific jobs, especially male-dominated fields, and how the trolling or the insults are not just, I don't agree with what you're saying. It's, you don't belong here. You're not allowed to be here just by virtue of being a woman. And that kind of harassment is so much more, I think, problematic and bothersome. If someone says you look fat today, or I think you're stupid for thinking that Jay Cutler should get re-signed, whatever that is, you can process and digest that much easier than someone who at their core deeply believes that you, by virtue of being a woman, should not be allowed to speak or should not be allowed to have a radio show or talk on sports. That's a larger societal issue that they're reflecting that still exists.
Well, and I want to go back to what you were saying about people sending these and they could create all these multiple accounts and you became numb to it. There's a lot of people that get these and they are not numb. And the people typing them have no idea what actually happened to that person or the impact it can have. Right. Do you have fellow people that work with you that it's really impacted in a whole different way where it could take a toll on them?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have young people that I mentor. And so I've had girls say to me, I wanted to get into sports, but I don't think I do anymore. I don't think I'm tough enough. I don't think I can handle that stuff. And so for someone like me that was already somewhat established by the time this sort of really began to build, it's easy for me to be tough because I have validation from my bosses and my peers and my fans. So when I hear stuff like this and when I get harassment, of course it hurts and of course it's bothersome, but I am extremely strong-willed at this point. If it had happened to me 15, 20 years ago, that's a totally different story. And so these girls coming right out of college that are trying to get into the field, they haven't built up that sort of armor yet. And they certainly haven't had the validation necessarily of bosses and peers that they've already established themselves in some way in order to deflect it. And then there's people, so Julie, who's in the video with me, she does have a history of being raped. And that is something people use to try to make her feel worse. And so
that's horrible. Right.
And what's interesting about, online bullying is when you're interacting with a person face to face, even if you hate them and even if your intent is to make them feel bad, there's something that is sociological when you take in what's happening to someone's face or body or eyes when you are intending to hurt them, right? And sociologically, unless you're a complete psychopath, you're going to feel what you've now done. When it's online, there is no connection. There's no humanity there. And so it allows people, I think sometimes who don't even really mean things like go drink bleach and die, which is a common one for me. They don't really mean that, but they also don't understand who they're talking to, whether they're having a bad day, whether they have history of depression, whether they have, something that happened in their family that might be, triggered by what you've said. And so I think one of the main problems with communicating so much online now is that we've lost the humanity, the connection between people that sort of facilitates any sort of sympathy or empathy or understanding.
Well, and for me, when I do get those things, it does hurt. Like people they think you're tough.
Right.
And yet, when you read those, it can be sad. It can really be a bummer of a day whenever you get something like that. So how do you handle, I know you said you kind of become numb to it, but how do you handle what comes your way?
Well, it's interesting. Everyone's full of opinions on this, right?
Mhm.
So I hear it from, oh, stop feeding the trolls. Don't respond to them. Don't give them attention. Just block them. Just mute them.
Mhm.
But then, of course, when I mute people, people say, oh, you're not strong enough to engage in debates. And debate is not someone telling me that they hope I die.
Right.
That's not
No,
there's nothing to be
that is
gained from
not.
that conversation.
Yeah.
So it's not worthwhile to me. So I do a lot of blocking. I've actually started muting on Twitter a lot because with blocking, they know they've been blocked. That allows them to keep creating new accounts because they want me to see it. If I mute them, they're just yelling at a brick wall. It takes them a long time to realize that I'm not getting any of what they're sending.
Right.
I'm not seeing it. And then there's days where I'm just feeling feisty and I don't want to keep digesting something and internalizing all of this and never getting to spit it back out. And so sometimes I just make fun of their grammar or call them out for something that's hypocritical in what they've written. Or sometimes I'll even say, that's very sad that you want me to die. We've never met. Here's a picture of me and my mom. I love her.
Oh,
right. I try to remind them like I'm a
human
person.
Yeah.
So it totally depends on what mood I'm in.
Well, I'm so thankful you created that video because that's definitely, it's made me think twice before I put anything out there. And, you know, I'm generally a very positive person, but it makes you think before you post. And I think that's a beautiful thing you created.
Thank you.
It's now time for our viewer's voice. And this week's question is, have you experienced cyberbullying?
I have not ever experienced cyberbullying, but I do work in higher education, and so I know that it's a really important topic that we have a lot of students who are, dealing with it and that have maybe experienced it themselves, and so we try to be really proactive to be able to support students and to find ways to encourage them to not participate in cyberbullying of each other and with other people.
I actually have a close friend of mine that got involved with the wrong group of people, and they started harassing her online and through social media accounts and stuff like that, and then it affected her in school. She ended up homeschooling with her mom for a while, and then she didn't come out with us anymore because she really was affected by how they treated her and everything. So yeah, not a good situation.
Yes, I have. I feel like it's very common, especially because we learned that in psychology in high school. So my little cousin, I would look on her little Facebook to make sure she wasn't talking to like strange men or something. And I would notice that, she's maybe like 14 now, and I would notice that people would message her and actually bully her. And I'm like, you gotta block these people. But I feel like it really hurts people's personalities or self-confidence when people treat them badly.
I have never personally been affected by cyberbullying, but I know that the people that are generally doing the cyberbullying are probably the most self-conscious ones themselves, and they should, for the betterment of themselves and others, they should try to avoid it as best as they can.
So I actually just watched the show 13 Reasons Why on Netflix, and it really hit home because it's like a really serious topic that I think is going on as technology keeps advancing and kids are getting access to devices younger and younger. I think that parents aren't doing a good enough job of like monitoring what their children are doing on their cell phones, their iPads, computer devices, whatever you have it. And I think that as we progress with technology, like there should be no reason why we aren't able to build apps or functions into our children's devices to better monitor, what they're doing on social media, and then making sure that those conversations are, happening, whether it be at the dinner table. I think that a lot of times we as a society are so busy and so, quick with everything we do that we don't just take time to like stop and like smell the roses, as cliche as it sounds. And whether that's like, doing breakfast in the morning with your family or, taking that time after work and in school to sit down and just have an hour where you go around the table and talk about things you're grateful for, or things that you're struggling with, and making that communication more easy for your kids to have with you. I think that would, start helping with the cyberbullying that we're seeing. I think it starts at home, and I think that with the way of technology is advancing, that's what we need to start doing more of, is just the face-to-face communication and not losing sight of that.
Our next guest was bullied as a kid and decided to take her firsthand experience and help preteens. And with generations that are growing up on smart devices, she's here to explain how to work through cyberbullying. Welcome, Yana.
Thank you for having me.
We are talking about cyberbullying, and you have firsthand knowledge because you were bullied. And now you aspire to help teens who are being bullied, and you've seen this kind of go on with online. So what did you learn from your bullying experience?
When I was bullied, I mean, obviously it was one-on-one. It was, we didn't have like internet as the kids have it right now, right? So it was more physical, it was more emotional. But I think I got attacked very hard. Like I felt not good about myself. I felt something's wrong with me, right? This is the first thing that happens. What is wrong with me, right? This is what kids think in their head, especially when they're young. They're like sponges. They observe everything that the people tell them. So the first thing when someone says you're bad or you're fat or you don't look good or there's something wrong, am I okay? So they feel fear.
So when you were younger and you were bullied, you said this had this impact on you.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to be able to like release it and help other people?
Wow, it took me a long time because I was very quiet about it. I had never talked about it. I actually was kind of hush-hush because I was embarrassed, right? As a bully, what the first thing you are embarrassed, like something wrong with me. And this is the self-prophecy that's you are thinking you're not okay, right? So instead of going for help, there was no help at that time. So I was thinking, okay, am I okay? Maybe I don't look like the other girls. Maybe I don't have what the other girls have. Am I normal? And so it took me years and years of just self-development to learn really what self-esteem is. What is the proper body language is.
I like that. So it took you a while to overcome it. And your daughter, now that we're in 2017, your daughter is also experiencing bullying, and it's probably part in person and online. So
Both.
what has that been like?
It's been very tough, but thank God she was able to talk to me about it. So going through the online, I don't even know what worse, having through computer or one-on-one. Like when people actually tell you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have what I have, and it constantly. So I mean, it lowered her self-esteem to the bare minimum. But then as we talked, I think the key is to talk to the parents. I think the children really neglect, or the parents sometimes we think they're okay, they're smiling when they come home, right? But really, how often do you talk to your kids? And just finding out what is going on with them inside and outside of school.
How did she open up that it was happening online? Because that's some parents I know have passwords to all their kids.
Which is smart, yes.
Well, and I'm wondering because some kids don't open up that this is
don't.
happening. So how did you figure that out?
Actually, one of the rules, I did have a passcode, so I was able to track it, some of it, but I also saw her behavior, how she was changing, so normally someone who's going through the bullying, they're more introverted, right? They don't want to talk about things. They're going to say, I'm fine, mom, I'm fine. Nothing is bothering me. But you could see them wearing black clothes. So the way that her manner started to change greatly. And I mean, she doesn't look like the other kids. She's very big. She's very tall. So that was also giving another indicator for kids to make fun of her. So as I sat down, I said, what is going on, really? And then you can hear them in the conversation. If you pay attention to the child, you can actually hear them throw the words in. I am not like the other girls. I don't look good. So if I think that's a parent, we need to really pay attention to the child.
To be listening.
Just to listen in between the words, read between the sentence.
And the crazy part is that here your daughter is experiencing being bullied, but you're working with teens about being bullied and how to overcome it.
Absolutely.
So did you get into that line of work because you were bullied?
That's it's exactly what kind of geared me to it, because I did not have the answers, right? I didn't find a help. So I had to go through the years and years of body image, eating disorders. I mean, I had it all. Just to find the bullying, right? Because I could not find myself. I felt like it was not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. My hair color I'm not tall enough. I'm not smart enough.
That's the crazy part with bullying. The things that sometimes we're being picked on are things that we can't even help.
No.
This is kind of like I couldn't change my height even if I wanted to.
Or the eye color. I mean, now you can with the lenses, right? But I mean, there's a limit to what you can do, right? So it kind of pushes you to another level. So right now, especially, the kids are so obsessed about how they look, to be popular, to be not popular. And so it's very hard, even harder than
And real quick, what do you recommend for people that are being bullied? Like, what do you recommend to the teens?
I always say that we cannot change the others. We can only start with ourselves. So I like for children, I love the mirror work. So looking in the mirror and just acknowledging, saying, I am who I am. This is me and I love it. Because as much as we can help others to change, we can't affect them. So what is the inner strength, inner power? And that's where I start with body awareness. Do you walk in tall, your head high, your shoulders back? How are your feet? Are you slouching? Are you dragging your feet? Start with the basic steps. So even how practice at home if you're not sure. And that's what I even did with my daughter.
Well, I
Just
love
we were
that.
walking back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I love the look in your mirror. Yeah. Look in the mirror. You are who you are. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Since today's show was on cyberbullying, we wanted to leave you with a way to get involved. Online, that is. So next time you're on the internet, #StopBullying. It's a way to raise awareness on this growing problem. The more light we can shine on this topic, the more people will understand that words matter, even if they are just online. For more information on today's show, visit WhitneyReynolds.com.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago. The Autobarn Mazda, where driving matters. A Safe Haven Foundation. Housing is healthcare. And Children's Learning Place. Excellence in early childhood education since 1998. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly at Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, Dr. Daft Terry and the team at Art of Modern Dentistry, Mazda, Cellular Intelligence, and Chicago Andrea Creative.